If your truck has steering play and wanders down the road like a 93 Dodge pickup, watch this video and we'll go over how to adjust it. Okay, when I talk about excess play, this is what I'm talking about. Now, every truck will have a little bit of wobble in the wheel. Mine's begun to feel almost disconnected on the road. I have this much free play that doesn't do anything, and when driving down the highway I feel it. I have to kind of keep working the wheel back and forth almost to make it go where I want to go. So your Ford F-150 or Raptor steering rack when it's not in the vehicle. Now, a lot of you are starting to get a little bit of slop in your steering, like I showed when shaking my wheel, and where that comes is from excess lash. Now, the pinion, this part up here is the pinion. It's got a gear that rides on these teeth. The amount of engagement in that gear will alter how much play that there is in the system. Ford won't tell you this, but there actually is an adjustment. This Teflon cup sits in this hole here, and it provides pressure to engage that gear mesh and take the lash out of it. Now, what's happening over time, especially if you have a torn bellow, some dirt gets in here, you'll actually start to wear out this Teflon, and you'll allow for more slop in that gear mesh. So really, the fix to tighten that up is as simple as tightening this cap. So this cap comes, it is set from the factory for a mesh, but as it breaks in over time, it is adjustable. Now, in order to adjust this, you're either going to need a 27mm Allen head, or you could take a nut and use a nut with a wrench or anything else. If you go to the hardware store, find a nut that is 1 inch and a 1/16, or like I said, it works out to be a 27mm, and you can put it in and get your adjustment this way. When doing your adjustment on the truck, this one's loose, of course, because it just had the entire cap off. You only want to do probably 1/8 of a turn at a time, 1/4 if you really got a lot of slop, and then you're going to want to check it and see how it goes. You can over tighten this to the point that your steering will almost bind. It won't return to center. It'll cause more wear on the Teflon and the shaft, and then you're going to be doing more harm than good. So when making adjustments, do little adjustments at a time. It is a little bit cumbersome because there's no really good way to adjust this while on the truck, and in a minute I'll show you what it'll take to make that adjustment. But while we're here, let's talk about the failures that most of us are having. Most people are blowing the seal. There's a seal inside here and a seal inside here. Most of us are blowing the seal on the driver's side first. There's two main causes of this. One of the main causes is when this is out of adjustment, this shaft actually has some play, and it could go up and down, side and side, and it actually will wear out the inner portion of the seal that rides in here and eventually cause a premature failure. From here to here, there's nothing else that supports this shaft. This is the main support for it. So if this is out of adjustment, your hydraulic seal over here is going to take more stress than it needs to. This side usually doesn't have the same problem. This side has the seal, and then it's got a huge nylon bushing that rides inside there. The passenger side of the vehicle has much more support than the driver's side does, and I believe that's the reason that we see more leaks out of the driver's side than the passenger side. Alright, first step you need to do is remove the skid plates and get access to the bolts that hold the steering rack in, which would be this, and for me it's a little bit under my one's cooler. You can see the second one. So whatever you have to do on your truck to gain access to those is the first step. You need to remove the bottom skid plate because we're actually going to make the adjustment from the underside of the truck. Alright, I'm back. To get these bolts, you're going to need a 26mm socket and a breaker bar. So I want to do as minimal work as possible, so I'm trying to leave all the tie rods connected and not put any undue stress on the rack itself. So we've loosened up the passenger side and removed the driver's side bolt at this time. This should allow me enough space between the frame and the adjuster to get a nut in there with a wrench and make the adjustments that we discussed. Okay, here we are under the truck. Up here, inside that is the nut for the adjuster that I showed you when it was on the bench. You can see now that I've loosened up the rack. I've got some space between the frame and that to hopefully get my bolt. I did kind of weld up a special little tool for doing this. Okay, to make the adjustment easier, I just welded a nut with a 19mm to the nut that I needed to make the adjustment, so I could use a ratcheting wrench to do so. Let's see where that's at. And we're just going to have to feel around and get that in there. Okay, so it's locked in. I'm turning it clockwise to go tighter. And I'm going to start with a turn like that. And then, unfortunately, we'll have to put the bolts back in, tighten them up, not necessarily to full torque, but enough that we could check how our play is doing and readjust again. Okay, so I've made my little adjustments. I still have the normal amount of play, but anything past that feels positive. Now once I get through the slop and the linkage, I'm actually turning the wheels. So there is always going to be a certain amount of play in these things, unfortunately. But once you get into that, it should feel positive. The best way to know if your adjustment's right is to go back out and drive it again and see if it feels more planted. Mine does. So we've successfully adjusted the box. Nothing binds in it. It all still feels nice and free. So we haven't put too much pressure on that either. Once you've decided that you've taken the amount of slop that you want out of your steering, be sure that you tighten these bolts back up, torque them down really good. I would recommend putting some Loctite back on them just to assure that they don't come loose. So at this point I would pull the bolts, both of them, and you can do one at a time, but pull one out, put some Loctite on it, get it in there and snug, pull the other one out, Loctite, snug, and then do a final torque on each. And then you can put your skid plates and anything else that you took off to access this back on the truck. Okay, after filming that portion on the truck, for those of you that have a good touch and a gentle hand, there is a way that you could get really close first try and probably be done with it. If you remember, this plate essentially has a spring behind it, and then all of that pushes on the nylon block. The whole point of the spring is to kind of take out some of the slop as it wears. But we want to just get tension on this. So if you were to go to your truck and give this thing a little bit of a turn out, and count how many turns out. If you go half turn, just remember that. You should be able to start going in, and this turns pretty easy, right? You're just compressing a very small spring. That spring really doesn't provide any real good pressure. So we're turning easy, we're turning easy. Okay, right now I just got snug. So I'm just gonna give it just a touch more. That should be set. You should be able to go test drive it at that and notice an improvement. So once it starts to get set, that means you bottomed out that spring and you're now starting to firmly hold pressure with that cup into the gear mesh. Like I said at the beginning, you don't want to over tighten that. You're going to cause excess wear, and really once it's snug, it's not going to get any better slop wise than that. You're just going to create more wear on your rack if you tighten it too much. So give it a half turn out, just so you can feel how easy it starts turning. Watch it as you come back in. You should easily get your half turn, and then, you know, my truck has 100,000 miles on it. I ended up almost needing a full turn in from where I started. Every truck's going to be different, so do a half turn out, start feeling how easy it turns on that half turn in, and once you feel the increase in resistance, stop. You're set. You've bottomed out the spring. You're finally holding some positive pressure on this. That cup will help prevent the shaft from moving up and down, side to side, and should help prevent the seal from blowing out on that end as well. Second biggest cause of failure in the steering rack for the seals is heat. It's no secret, these pumps make a lot of noise, they make a lot of heat. The stock Raptor or F-150 power steering cooler is sufficient if you're daily driving down the road, but if you're actually working these things at all off-road, it's not hot. You know, there's kits like the How kit. Changing the pump itself will not provide any extra protection or durability out of this rack. It's simply not going to happen. Change of the pump itself gets you probably a better pump. The only advantage that the How kit has that would help this is it comes with an extra cooler and it comes with a filter. If you're on a budget and you don't have $1,000 or whatever they're getting for a steering pump and a cooler kit, you can actually get yourself a nice electric fan cooler. Gosh, off Amazon you could get one like I used for the trans cooler. I think it was right around $200, and there's a company called Magnifine. They do inline transmission and power steering filters. It's got a magnet in it as well. You could put one of those on your return line back to your reservoir tank. That probably costs $15 or $18. You could look those up. You just need to know, it's probably a 3/8 barb fitting that you need. So to really make your stock F-150 or Raptor steering rack last, step one, adjust it. Step two, get yourself a nice cooler, or at least some sort of additional cooler, and a filter in there will last. If you want a cool pump, you can buy the How kit, but if you're buying the How kit because you think it's going to help your rack last without the adjustment and stuff, the only benefit of that kit again is the fact that it comes with an aftermarket cooler. Alright, thanks for watching the video. I hope it helps you guys out. If you have any questions, you could write them in the comments. Hit me up on Instagram. Any other requests for how-to videos, feel free to send me a message and let me know.